IVM.
Science journalists Nandita Jayaraj and Ashima Dogra have traveled to institutes across India, interviewing a wide spectrum of women in science and discovering research that is pushing the boundaries of their respective fields. Through the course of these podcasts, we will learn of the daily grind that makes up their lives as scientists, the significance of their research, the limitations of their experiments, and the challenges and discrimination they encounter being women in the scientific community. In this podcast, Nandita talks to Smita Hegde, a pteridologist, or one who studies ferns.
So I have lived in 5 states and 24 houses.
A lot of schools.
I learned 9 languages, 8 schools. So no matter where you go, you smile, they smile. You frown, they frown. So I think human beings, all of us are at the same level.
You were just listening to Dr. Smita Hegde, who studies a group of plants found everywhere, yet not something that typically captures our imaginations: ferns. Smita currently is a professor at Nitya University in Mangalore and is considered one of the foremost experts in pteridology, the study of ferns.
They have a pseudo bark, like a coconut tree they become.
Okay.
They have a pseudo stem and they have a foliage like 7 feet, 8 feet.
Those were the first land trees.
Those were the first land trees,
okay.
Correct. And those are responsible for the petrol that we have today.
Okay.
The cycads and these. Okay. So we have a lot of importance of these ferns, but they are adapting very rapidly to urban conditions.
Okay.
Ferns are one of the first plants to ever grow on land. We're talking 350 million years ago. They continue to exist and thrive in all kinds of habitats on Earth today, all 13,600 species of them. The plants look different, but all of them reproduce through spores. Though they lack flowers and leaves, it was recently discovered that ferns have retained the genes for flowering. Why do they need these genes if they don't flower? That's one mystery Smita's team is looking to solve. More recently, Smita's services have been enlisted to deal with the forest fire problem in the Kudremukh National Park in Karnataka. Why her? Smita told us how a pteridologist can help the situation.
In Kudremukh National Park, there is forest fire incidents.
Okay.
So I am now a consultant to Kudremukh Forest Department to help them to understand the correlation between forest fire and growth of one fern.
Okay.
There is a fern called Pteridum aquilinium.
Okay.
And this is growing like a super weed. I told you,
and it's fire prone. The more of that.
It is called as a good fuel for burning.
Right.
So it is causing forest fires.
Okay.
And normally forest officials, they burn intentionally, they burn one patch.
Okay.
So that fire doesn't spread. When they burn that, this fellow grows very nicely in that region, not allowing grass to grow.
Okay.
As a result, deer in that location are not able to get adequate fodder.
Okay.
It is a tiger reserve.
Okay.
One tiger needs 500 40 kg medium-sized animals per year. And 40 kg medium-sized 500 animals need this much grazing land. That grazing land is taken up by this fern.
And this fern does not work as fodder. It does not give any.
No, and it's a toxic also.
Okay.
So what has a life in science been like for Smita? As grateful as she is for her supportive family, she pointed out some harsh realities about the double standards between men and women in science.
The other thing that we face as women is we are cheap labor and substitutes. So if there is a vacancy and there are interviews, I have seen as a teacher, a lady teacher is paid less than a man. Yeah. I do find that women are cheap labor and we are not paid and sometimes
Is this only at the entry level?
Not so much at the entry level. At entry level, they are encouraged to join because they are cheap labor. See, if I want to hire a man with a PhD, he will have already with PhD means he will be married, having a child. He will not be willing to work for anything less than 30, 35. But you take a lady, husband is working, she is able to support.
It's just a supplementary income.
So I'll tell you my experience. I don't have funds now. I had 2 projects that got over.
Okay.
And with this new government, अच्छे दिन नहीं आ रहे. Funds are not coming in science. Lot of it is diverted to IITs and central universities, but very little is coming to teachers.
Okay.
So teachers' research is slowing down very drastically because UGC has not released funds for teachers' research, which was due.
Okay.
Because of which can't pay fellowship.
Okay.
You think a boy would survive for 3 years without fellowship if he was married and if
Oh, so these students are not able to get fellowship
No.
because
these 2 are working without fellowship.
Okay.
That's why I said they are very focused that they
Right,
want a
right.
PhD. They want a PhD and they are willing to do it at their cost.
Right.
So it's a different approach. So I feel if it were I have a boy student also. I used to give him a stipend till when I had the project. Then the project got over. Now he is supporting himself. But he's on the constant look for alternative jobs and
Right.
I feel that comparison. That the stress on boy students is very high to find employment and stipend in research. Whereas for women, the degree values more. That maybe it is just to say I am a PhD and I don't hold it against them. I don't think if it's a waste that you give PhD to a girl and she doesn't get a job, she stays back at home. Then such a waste of degree. I don't think it is so. Because one woman, I think she will affect a whole family and a whole generation to come. And when right opportunity comes, who knows, after 10 years also she can take up teaching. So one of my PhD students now sitting at home, I said, okay, it's your choice because the other child is small. When the child grows up, I am sure she will look for other opportunities and to get that. So many of us feel taking a lady may be waste. PhD. That kind of attitude is there. But people do not understand that money is not the only drive in life. Many people do PhD just to feel good about themselves. Why they shouldn't do it? And if they are willing to do it at their cost, what's my problem? I should just give them the right environment. So you give the right environment, they will bloom forth.
Smita has also experienced the dark side of research for women. Though she successfully balanced research and family life during her early years of marriage and her first baby, Smita had a lot of problems before her second child was born.
I had 5 miscarriages.
Okay.
1 stillbirth also. They say the amount of chemicals that we inhale and expose ourselves in the lab is not safe. I do not know. I do not have any evidence to say it is true. But I have had a terrible emotional roller coaster. Now I am talking about it. There were times where I couldn't talk about it. Because it's one of the worst things for a woman to happen is to give birth to a dead baby. It's very horrible. So I have passed through the worst reproductive phases. And I think maybe some chemical, maybe the kind of exposure that we have in lab. So I'm very careful with my students. I do not expose them to any organic solvents, any chemicals that they inhale. I was working a lot with organic solvents. So we have to take care. So women in science, particularly during reproductive phase, if you're dealing with chemicals, you need to take care. That one thing I learned the hard way. And I don't want that to happen to young girls now. And luckily,
Do you think this care that you are taking now is being done in other labs? Are people aware that they should be?
I don't know.
So if let's say you had a daughter who wanted to do this, would it be a concern for you?
See, for example, battery industry, lead battery. Men who work in lead battery industries, sperms die. They don't get children.
Right.
They know it.
Right.
But still, people having lead industries get married, adopt children, and they move on. So there are some hazards that are very well known. But people, I don't know why they do that, but I really wish in science they have a year's break. If they are thinking of getting into a reproductive phase, then you need some time. And it becomes the country's, asset. If the next generation is affected genetically, it's not going to get us anywhere. So I seriously feel that we need to take care of women in science, particularly in chemistry, and where we are exposing ourselves to chemicals during that phase is important. And I haven't heard anybody speak about it. Maybe they think it's an accident or fate or karma and things like that. But there is no documentation, evidence for me to even prove it. But I have gone through. It was very bad. So last 10 years back when I conceived again, I said I'm not coming to the lab. I didn't come to the lab. 6 months I sat at home. I was even in the hospital. Then I had a normal baby. So I don't know how to explain that. Now she's 10 years old. So I thought if I had stayed back away from the lab in the first years, maybe I would have had a normal child then. I wouldn't have to go through this traumatic phase. The incidences of miscarriages are increasing, I feel. Is it the pesticides we are exposed to? Or is it the lab lifestyle? I do not know. But first pregnancy I've gone UK and I've come. Absolute normal. And I have worked the day before delivery also I have worked.
But you were working with the same chemicals even then?
Yes, but maybe prolonged exposure?
Right.
I do not know.
But it does a little bit sound from what you're saying like it is a risk for women to be in science.
Exposure to chemicals during reproductive phase is a precaution that nobody pays attention to.
Okay.
And I would like somebody to pay attention to it. And I didn't pay attention to it and I suffer. So I am saying, look, there is a hole here, take care when you cross this phase. Avoid exposure to organic solvents. Avoid exposure to chemicals that are absorbed through skin. Biology is very powerful, but chemicals are getting even more powerful.
Right. So when you tell your students this, it doesn't scare them away.
Yeah. So I tell them when they come to that bridge. Now Ramya is pregnant. So I tell her, I call her, I speak to her. That this part is risky. Don't do it now. Don't do it now. And when they came, during the interview, I do ask them, do you plan to have children? If you plan to have children, I'll give you this job. So hydroponics I have given her because it doesn't involve hazardous chemicals.
Right.
And the other person I have given topics again which doesn't deal with hazardous chemicals. Because I think she's going to have a second child.
Okay.
Might have a second child.
But you do leave it up to them to...
I give them a varied topic. Then I talk to them individually, but I don't air my views and scare them. But care, I definitely make them take care. Okay, so these are some things as a woman in science, the challenges that we face.
That was science journalist Nandita Jayaraj in conversation with teratologist Smita Hegde. To find out more about her and other women scientists around the country, do check out thelifeofscience.com for Nandita and Ashima's work.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out IVM Podcasts to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.